so this is Indie Pitching 2.0. I'm calling it 2.0 because if anyone attended the Unreal Dev Meetup in 2019 in Manchester, I did the first version of this after working at a publisher for 6.5 years. So since then, I have set up a studio and got investment. So I've kind of seen both sides of the coin now. So I wanted to give like a revitalized version of this talk with everything that I've learned so far. So yeah, a talk by me. Is there any indie developers here? Like, show of hands. We've got a few indie developers. Do we have any publishers or investors here as well? Me? I was going to say, if there was any people holding their hands up, we should all have a look around and be like, there's networking opportunities there. But for all of the indie developers or would-be indie developers, like building your network of indie developers between yourselves as well, really, really useful. So, yeah. Yeah, a little bit about me. I am, my name is Hollie Emery. My pronouns are they, them, or he, him. I am a trans guy. Managing director at Bonsai Collective. We've just recently announced our debut game. It's called Lunar Abyss. Please wishlist it. Shameless plug, wouldn't it all? My publishing and production credits include Horizon Call of the Mountain VR, Overcooked, Yuki's Island Express, and many, many Worms games as well. 2017. This is my 13th or 14th year in video games. Yeah, I've been running Bonsai Collective for 4 years. Oh my gosh, 4 years, time flies. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm hoping to instill some of those experiences into this. So, first off, I wanted to talk about studio and game brand. So, when you're going into like pitching, you're an indie developer, you've got an idea for a game. One of the things that I saw a lot of developers during the pitch processing do, kind of combine those two things and rest all of their laurels into their game idea rather than the brand that they might want to create as their own identity within their studio. So having a separate identity for your game versus your studio, I think is a really important step you can take, because you can basically instill all your values as a developer for the game visions that you want to create into your studio's brand, and that is like your foundation for the games, the multiple games that you might want to create as a developer. You might be thinking right now, I want to create more than one game within my studio, but if you're not setting those foundations from the start, like, you might get to the end of shipping your first game, and then be like, oh, where am I going next with my studio kind of thing. So thinking about those long-term like plans and goals with your brand, it's just really, really important. So yeah, like the message here is, you're not just selling a game, you're selling what working with the studio, which could be yourself, it could be a team of people, is like, which you represent as well. Thank you. So Scouts are lovely. I'm just doing a little slide shout out of the Scouts and like representatives from publishers and investors as well. So one thing that I've really learned from seeing both sides is that these people are employed to effectively advocate for indie developers within a studio, to kind of put the ideas forward and shout about them. They're effectively pitching for your game internally within the studio, and they're able to give advice on how to pitch to this publisher or this investor, etc. And each publisher is different as well, so each scout is going to give you like good advice on how to cater your pitch for that process too. So they could be, their title could be scout, it could be business development person, it could be production person. Either way, the person that you're speaking to is going to have the best insight on catering the pitch to the internal process within the studio as well. Yeah. Pitch tips. This is my production artwork here. Why did I do that? Oh my gosh, I've set up animations. I forgot that I set up animations, so you're going to have to bear with us while we go through all of this. Just experiencing a bug here.
QA testing.
There we go. There we go. Excellent. Sorry about that. So, should have tested it in present mode, and not just outside of present mode. But yeah, go through each of these points. Some documentation that you can create to help you on your journey, and things that nearly every publisher or investor out there is going to look for as part of your pitching deck is going to be a budget and a cash flow. Now your budget is like the lump sum, like what the amount that you're requesting for the entire development of your pitch. The cash flow is the money that's going to come in and out on a month-by-month basis, and basically the maximum amount of money that's going to come out on a month-by-month basis. So identifying both of those things will tie into this point here, the milestone schedule, and the money you need based on your cash flow. There are many, many publishers out there that when you're going through like the later stages of a publishing conversation, they'll be like, what is your milestone schedule? How are you reviewing the game in incremental stages to make sure that you're on track towards your time goal for developing a video game? And yeah, the way they'll do that is more often than not by a milestone schedule, and they will ask you the money associated to each of those milestones as well. So by tying both of these things together, you can effectively budget for your studio. Contingency funds. Skipped over this point, but it's so very important. When you think you've got a budget for your game, you've thought, okay, all of my costs is going to be X, Y, Z over ABC number of months or years. And any people that I might want to hire along the way as well, it's going to come to £100,000, it's going to come to £1 million, it's going to come to £5 million. You want to make sure that at the point that you are submitting or like releasing your game, you're adding an extra 6 months onto that. Now, why 6 months? I hear you cry. Everyone shouted in the room at that point. It is because it takes a while to receive funds from any platform holder. It can take, some platform holders pay quarterly, and then if you have a publisher involved as well, the money has to go through multiple people before you receive it in your bank as well. So the minimum amount of time from shipping to actually receiving funds is probably about 4 months for most publishers. So there's a lot of developers that are out there that I've seen a lot of developers out there in my time who haven't considered that, and then they've had what's called the cash gap. And it's problematic. You want to try and avoid that. Now, if you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to like rationalize that in a pitch? Well, most games nowadays have a post-release roadmap of updates and DLC, so you can rationalize that quite well in a pitch deck just by saying, this is where I plan to spend the money after the game releases, on post-release content, on reactive comments in our Steam forum, for example. The next point on this list is sales forecast. I put stretch goal here because, at least during my time in publishing, a lot of developers didn't go for sales forecasts or didn't have the knowledge to plan for a sales forecast, but I find it's really, really useful information to try and build a sales forecast for yourself as well, because you can have a lot more reassurance. Say, for example, if you've got 3 competitor games off of Steam and thought, okay, I'm going onto Steam Spy, I'm going to get the the low figure and the high figure for the number of units sold. And then I'm going to calculate like how many units I would have to sell at my like RRP to kind of figure out your like level of success, where the number of units that you would need to sell in order to be a success. That's information that you can use in your pitch as well. Again, it's a stretch goal. It is some complicated maths as well. So I love Excel. Bit of a spreadsheet nerd for it. And then finally, communicate regularly with your pitch targets. Now, what I mean by that is sometimes you might be waiting weeks for a response from someone that you're pitching to. It is absolutely okay after a few days if they've responded to you and they've said, I'll get back to you on this, I'll send you an NDA, and you haven't heard anything back, to just drop them a message and say, hey, I'm just checking in. Is everything all right with the materials that I've sent across? You're not going to come across as like you're harassing the person that you're speaking to. You're trying to get information because you're trying to plan for your business in your pitch process as well. So, like checking in with the people you're pitching to isn't a bad thing, and I just encourage to try to get regular updates as well, because sometimes you're waiting weeks and weeks for the green light process with it. QA and UX. Now, no specific points here, but I just wanted to say that when you're building like a schedule for a game, it's really, really important to have regular points in your milestone schedule for QA and UX. Now, I've done talks in the past where I talk a lot about production. I haven't in this one, but I would really recommend blocking time out where you're not developing, where everyone on the team is just reviewing the content that you've created, to make sure that you're hitting the values and the vision of the game that you set out to achieve at the start. When it all comes together, things can change. I know that when we started developing Lunar Abyss, so much has like changed from the initial concept. Not like massive things, we haven't like changed genres or anything like that, but certain features have changed. Like we set up to make less of a combat experience, and combat it became more of a really exciting core component of our gameplay as we developed the game more, and so our kind of focus changed a bit. Oh my gosh, the animations are still in here. Completely forgot about my animations. So talk about failure a lot. Now, this is something that I'm quite bad at, and I still feel like I fail at talking about failure, but being vulnerable, making sure that you're doing iterative improvements, learning from mistakes, having space for constructive criticism, sharing knowledge, and avoiding blame, they're all components of like recontextualizing what failure means for you. So in every single step that I've taken whilst building a studio and just like learning along the journey is that it's all learning points rather than failure points, if that makes sense. Like if I see it as a failure, I might be like really hard on myself, and so like recontextualizing it as a point of learning, being like, I can do that better next time. Giving myself space for like learning, and everyone here as well, giving yourself space for learning is just good. It's real good. I wanted to give just a shout out here as well. If you're an indie that is a remote worker or is interested in getting into remote work, self-care, oh my gosh. I cannot stress, I sit in a room for like 10 hours a day, and the room has no windows in it, so literally no windows, so like leaving the desk, like sticking to set working hours, time boxing yourself to like stepping away from your computer, actually taking breaks for lunch, like leaving the computer, shutting the laptop down, just throw it out the window. And hydrating as well, it's just all really important stuff. And it sounds like really silly that I'm saying that out loud, but when you're in the moment and you're there and you get to the end of the day and you're like, I've not stood up today, you think, I should not do that again, that is not good self-care. And you can't develop video games like that, you can't be creative like that as well. You're not giving yourself a good foundation to develop, like, for yourself, but also if you're building a team for other people as well, people are going to see that and they're going to like learn from it. So